Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the country. Thank you for joining us for our All About Accounting event today. My name is Fanae Croft. I'm the Field Marketing Manager for the Americas region, and I spent a lot of time engaging with candidates, whether virtually during sessions like this or in person. And we know that there are many of our test takers and future test takers who have backgrounds in accounting. And we know that it can be daunting figuring out next steps. What do I do now? Or I'm an undergraduate and I'm thinking about, do I get a CPA? When do I get a CPA? Do I go to grad school? Do I get an MBA? There are a lot of questions and concerns that may come up. Some of you who've been in industry, you're trying to decide, should you take that step back and get an MBA from there? Well, hopefully we can answer some of those today. We have a panel of experts today, so hopefully we can cover the whole gamut. Any questions that you have, just to let you know, I know you're viewing on YouTube. We're going to be checking in. Post any questions you have as we're having our conversation. And we'll make sure that the last 20 minutes of the session, we're going to spend directly answering your questions. So if you have a specific question for one of our panelists, make sure to throw it to them. But other than that, listen, soak up some information, and hopefully we can get some questions from you on the other end. So joining us today, we have three panelists. Bert Slusher. He is the Director of Admissions and Recruitment at UC Irvine's Paul Mirage School of Business. We also have Shelby Stebbins, who's joining us. She's a current student right now in a MS in Accounting program at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. So we'll welcome her. She'll be graduating next year, has already secured her position. So hopefully she can tell you more about that. And then we have Chantel White, who is currently in industry. She's been where some of you all may be. She has her MBA and she's also a CPA. She currently works for PricewaterhouseCoopers as a senior tax associate. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Shelby, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, hi, and I'm Shelby. I'm actually from Bloomington, Indiana, which that's where the Kelley School of Business is. So growing up in this community and just having a love for it, and also having a love for knowing my passion was business. I did my undergraduate here at Kelley, and I majored in accounting and information systems. I did an internship later on my junior year with KPMG. Had a great time, great experience, but coming out of it, I felt like I didn't know a whole lot and needed to learn some more. And I knew that going to grad school was probably my next best option. And so then I applied to a few schools and decided to stay at Kelley and go through their and join their MSA program, which is Master's of Science in Accounting. And so that's where I am currently in right now. It's a one-year program, so like she said, I'll graduate in May, and then I start my job next fall. So I'm really excited for that. So yeah, just having a good time here, working really hard, studying.
Awesome. What are your immediate post-master's goals? So immediately following your completion of your degree, and then where do you see yourself 3 to 5 years out?
Yeah, right when I get my degree, the day of graduation, right afterwards, starting to study for the CPA exam. I do plan to take the CPA exam, and Kelley has a Becker Fast Pass program. So right after graduation, the day afterwards, we have class for another 6 weeks studying for the CPA exam. So I'll be doing that. I want to pass that this summer. That way I don't have to worry about it all when I start school. And seeing myself 5 years from now, or a little bit longer than that, I definitely want to get to a manager status in my firm, and then from there, I think I'll be really specialized in the industry, and I think I want to go work for a public company or private in the industry that I like. Or my second option is I still would really like to be a partner, so maybe sticking in that track if it's still good for me to stay in the public accounting sector. So those are kind of my two short-term and long-term goals setting out.
Sure. Okay. Speaking of CPA, so you mentioned wanting to take it right out of school. Chantel, how did you arrive at your decision on when you were going to sit for the CPA exam, and what was your experience with it?
So that was definitely a big decision for me. So for the firm that I accepted my offer with, which was PwC, they not only require the CPA exam in order for you to get certain promotions, but they also gave you a $5,000 incentive to get it done. So I was motivated, and I also was required to get it done. So I definitely planned. For me, I went to grad school and I did an MBA program, and it was actually, I took it in kind of a compacted time frame. So I had a really heavy load throughout my MBA program. So what I did was I took my start date that I had in my initial offer letter with PwC, and I pushed it back a semester so that way I could have a full semester dedicated to where I could do absolutely nothing but just study. I moved back home, so I didn't have to worry about working or school or anything else. It was just, my life was just studying and getting as much as that exam done before I started working as possible. So I was fortunate to be able to get 3 parts done before I started. And then I just had 1 part to knock out once I was actually, working already. So I definitely encourage everyone to do as much of it as possible in advance.
Okay. Bert, so there are a lot of people like Chantel. Their ultimate goal is to obtain their CPA, and there of course are requirements and things that you have to do prior to. Can you talk about the pathways to it? If you were to go into a master's in accounting program, what the requirements are, and then maybe even the differences between a master's program and an MBA program, because we've been to events where you'll hear students, they say, yeah, I want to get I know I need to get my master's because I want to get a CPA, but they don't really even know the difference between an MBA and a master's or an MS.
Sure. Yeah, and that's a good question. I think we get that quite a bit for a lot of our students, even here with Shelby and Chantel. And it sounds like they have those different experiences of Shelby doing sort of the Masters of Accounting and Chantel going the MBA route, but still being a CPA. I'm out here in California, in Southern California. Our laws changed for the CPA requirement back in 2014. So they added sort of the 150 semester unit rule, the 225 quarter unit rule. So a lot of students opt to stay that additional year out of undergrad, sort of doing a 4 years undergrad timeline and 1 year for their master's degree. And that way, when they complete these programs, they're coming out not only with a master's degree, a lot of times, like you saw with Shelby, they already have employment even before they hit their master's degree completion, which is a big benefit. There's a huge market for accounting employment, even here in Southern California. Even in Irvine alone, there's about 5,000 accounting positions, and they continually just hire left and right. So it's a really good value for people going out there. The question that we do get sometimes from students is that, well, what's the difference between an MBA and a master's degree in accounting, for example? A lot of the top 50 MBA programs won't really consider students without work experience, meaning post-baccalaureate work experience. So if you have 3 to 5 years of work experience, you would go back and get your degree. But with accounting, because of these new requirements, such as the CPA educational requirements, a lot of people need to go back for this 1 additional year. And there's no work experience for these specialized programs. They're really designed to serve as a bridge into the professional world, where the MBA is really trying to design and kind of maybe elevate your current position already once you're working in the field. So there's differences in that, but also, at least how we are here at UCI, is that students can take MBA classes while they're in our program. I mean, the focus is still very much accounting related, but they can still take accounting courses while they're doing their master's degree. I think that's probably the major difference in terms of the MBA and also a master's in accounting. It's much more specialized, it's much more focused to one industry versus the MBA, which is very broad in scope.
Okay. As a student, Shelby, tell us about what do you feel like the major differences were in your coursework going from your undergrad experience in an accounting program and now in a master's program?
Yeah, I would definitely say that it's a lot harder quality work. They don't hold your hand. You may get an undergrad. I felt like we got case assignments that were pages long, just detailed information, and now I get a one-page case assignment for some huge project that I have to do, and you have to figure it out on your own or ask the right questions to get more information. So I would say that the work quality is definitely a lot higher. There's a lot higher expectations when you come into the grad school. You're considered a professional now. Like, you're expected to go to every class. You're expected to go to office hours and put in the extra hours to get the work done. But the workload is definitely a lot more. I also noticed that in undergrad, I felt like I got a broad overview of what accounting was and just kind of the basics on each thing about accounting. But in grad school, it gets a lot more specific. So I'm learning about like forensics and IT accounting, IT auditing. And I think that's really helpful too, because when I get out of here, I'm going to have a lot more knowledge on those specific things, and that's going to make me stand out when I go join my firm. So that's really helpful. So yeah, undergrad is just to get the base knowledge, and at grad school you really dive down deep into it about certain topics within accounting. So that's what I really enjoyed about the program.
Okay. And Chantel, tell us about your experience, because you went a different route. You went right into an MBA program. So tell us about the distinctions between undergrad and graduate. Did you feel like you got that the specific accounting knowledge you needed to be successful where you are now by going that route, and what other opportunities might be available to you because of it?
Gotcha. So for me, I would say the main differences were that I felt in undergrad we had a lot more like class assignments or homework assignments. You know, there were a lot of items that would build up into your final grade, whereas in grad school it was like midterm, project, final exam. So it was a lot more weight in making sure that, you know, whatever your final deliverables were that you submitted to your professor were good and clean and were in a good shape. Definitely a lot more group projects, which was good because you work with people who did go to work before coming into the MBA program. So you get to learn from their experiences, and, you know, you just compiling all these different perspectives together. I would say that as far as me being prepared for work, I went into tax for my career, so it's a little bit more specialized. So I do feel like there are some areas where I missed out on some of those, you know, specialty, like Shelby was referring to, where I could have gotten a little bit deeper background, but then also just through studying with the CPA and through some of my former undergraduate classes for accounting, I still was able to refresh and, you know, make it on those things. But compared to some of my peers, I will say that some of them came in with a little bit more background tax knowledge than what I was able to get just going through an MBA program.
Sure. That's interesting. Bert, can you talk about some of the outcomes, you know, Masters of Accounting, some of the career options available in pursuing that path, or after pursuing that path?
Sure. I mean, I think the first thing, even just why people would choose probably a master's in accounting, is that there is a pretty high level of employability. A lot of the top programs, you know, like how our program is, we focus on that career side. So people have about 94, 96% of employment rate coming out of the program. And many times, like even like Shelby's example, they even have jobs pretty much before they even graduate. Right now, we're in our 4th week, and already a lot of our students are in the process of securing positions. So I think one reason people choose this is more for that employability, because accounting, there's quite a bit of opportunities with that. But you see a couple right here, you know, going into the public accounting world, whether it's tax or audit, some students go into advisory. There's a big shift going into big data and analytics. So even some of our program focuses on electives that have a big data focus on it. So data analytics is shifting sort of the way auditing is being done. But even longer term, a lot of our students will start out in public accounting. About 80% of our students go into public accounting. You know, some go into not-for-profit accounting, working for foundations, not-for-profits. Some become private accountants, working internally for companies. But long-term, a lot of students have the goal of becoming maybe CFOs, having the route to become a partner on the public accounting side. It really just depends on what most people do. What's interesting, though, is that most start with public accounting, but end up being more in the private sector if you look 5 to 10 years down the road.
Okay. Chantel, tell us how you ended up at PwC. I'm sure, you know, everyone would be interested in how you got there, and we want to talk to you too, Shelby, about how you secured your position, what routes, what avenues you used to help you out there.
Yeah, so I actually was very active in an organization on my campus called NABA. It's the National Association of Black Accountants. And through that organization, we would bring different companies and recruiters to our campus quite often just to talk to our accounting students. And it was through there that I got really close with one of the recruiters, and he invited me to one of their, it's like a pre-internship program. And from there, I was able to get an internship offer. I did 2 internships with PwC my junior year, and then again my senior year. And after that, I was able to accept and just coast through grad school, knowing that I've got a job in my back pocket. So it was definitely a great feeling walking across that stage.
Absolutely. Shelby, tell us about your new role.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be working at Indianapolis as an audit associate. How I kind of got there, I feel like our school does a really good job at bringing recruiters here, so that's nice. I didn't have to work too hard about going and finding them, and I knew I wanted to do the Big Four. I'm kind of one of those Big Four junkies, and I knew that's where I wanted to start out, so I could just learn a lot of things quickly. And so I was focusing more on them in my recruiting route. I interviewed with 3 of the Big Four firms, and I think what really helped me going through that interview process, getting to the internship, was just how I interacted with recruiters, how I interacted not only with just the recruiter, but also the other people that they brought, their other associates in the building, and going to their events that they had. I always made sure my face was brought up. I asked really in-depth questions, not stuff that you can just find on their website or anything, and I think that really helped me stand out. And then just having those like soft skills, being able just to communicate with them, they're really looking for that as someone to work on their team with. That's what they're looking for, is if they can work with you on their team. My internship went really well. I learned a lot, and I really liked everyone that I was working with. And I think a lot of, if you're deciding to go like one of the Big Four, they're all really the same. It's just kind of your cultural fit, of where you fit well with them. And I think I really enjoyed my team. The atmosphere, the vibe that I got from them was good. I definitely want to continue with them, and they offered me an offer after the internship, knowing that I was going to have to do grad school for a year. So that was really nice too, and that's kind of how I ended up going into that position and continuing on that track.
Well, congratulations again on that. What skill sets from your undergraduate experience do you feel like have been like your strongest assets while you've been in your program now?
Yeah. I think my leadership skills. In undergraduate, I was the president of the women's club soccer team here for a couple of years. I always was probably the one in the group who did tons of group project works in undergrad, and I always decided to take on more responsibility or just step up. And we didn't know what to do for a problem, I'd just be like, it's okay, I'll try to figure it out. Like, I always said yes and never said no to accepting problems. So I think my leadership skills that I've developed through doing those sorts of things, working as the president of that club, definitely helped make me stand out, being able to communicate effectively with others, motivate others to work well in a team, and also just understanding how others work, so I understand how to motivate others because they have different skill sets and different levels, and being able to adjust yourself to other different teammates. It's really good to be able to have that adaptability. I think that's a really strong skill that I've learned from going from undergrad, taking it out to grad school. Because, like she said, grad school is a lot of teamwork. It's even more so. I couldn't believe it that it would be more team projects, but it is. So.
Okay, Bert, what skills are valuable to you when you're admitting students into your programs? Like, what should, if someone's an undergraduate right now, what's going to be really important? How can they shine?
Yeah, I think Shelby and Chantel are probably perfect examples of what we would look for in candidates, and even the firms have sort of indicated that by hiring them. Leadership, whether it's through clubs or even being part of Beta Alpha Psi or accounting associations related to campus clubs and working with firms, that leadership ability is very important. Even for us, we are open to taking students that are non-accounting majors in undergrad. We have students that come from theater and history and just have that critical thinking desire. So even in our classes, we really have a diverse group of students that's not just focused from biz admin and accounting. Now, most of our students are business admin and accounting, but we definitely try to open it up to make that diverse experience more important. And when you're working on tax or audit, it's really important to have grit, I think. Having kind of these intangible assets of going through really long, busy weeks and being able to handle a heavy workload. I think that's one of the understandable things that people go into accounting probably have seen that through the internship. But once they start working, they have to have that ability to adapt, to grow, to sort of be focused on where the market is changing, meaning that they have kind of these intangibles. So the accounting side, you'll get that. You'll get the CPA exam, you'll be prepared, you'll have that. But once you start working, you really have to be able to focus on what's that next level for your career path growth. So people that have a vision beyond just the short term, maybe just 1 or 2 years down the road, maybe a longer term plan, at least that's what we try to assess here. And it does make for a better class experience once students get here. And you probably have that in different programs that do have more of a rigorous selection process, because your classmates will probably be your coworkers as well, and will be on audit engagements with you, will be working on big tax projects. So we really look for those intangibles. But also academics are important, obviously that goes without saying, but when we're looking for candidates that are on the cusp, I think those qualities of leadership and the ability to persist even in the face of adversity are very, very critical. And that's critical for accounting, but that's critical probably for any profession that's out there.
What is the application process like, or the elements of the application?
Sure. So I'm sure some programs are different in some ways. So for us, we do require letters of recommendation. These can be from professors typically, because a lot of our students don't have any work experience, but they can also be from club leadership experience that you have. That's important. We have a personal statement that focuses on your goals as they pertain to doing a master's degree. We also look for a resume, and a lot of our students already have a resume that's already kind of handy. They upload that. And normally for us, we do look for people having a financial managerial accounting background. Most business administration major students will already have that taken. If you don't have that, if you're coming from a non-business background, you can take these classes through online courses or extension classes, are pretty much offered everywhere. Financial managerial accounting classes are pretty basic. And then we have sort of a summer boot camp for non-accounting students, and then for our students that have an accounting background, they'll start with us in the fall. So we have about 800 applicants per year for our program, for a class about 130, 140 students. And those that do get selected to the next level will have an interview process. And through the interview, we really assess a bit of their behavioral context of how they will do. And for us, because that career side is very important for us, we try to pre-screen applicants. Will they work well in teams? How do they respond to behavioral interview questions? So we're trying to do a little bit of the legwork also for firms, so they're kind of ready and have a good expectation when students get out there. But that's pretty much the process. We tend to work pretty quickly with students. We have a rolling admissions process. Some programs are the same way. So whenever you're ready or you feel like you're wanting to apply to a program, you can probably apply at any time. These are one-year programs, so they're pretty much taking students all the time. So.
Okay. Is the GMAT a part of your process as well?
We do have it. So we strongly recommend it for students that have, at least in our way, we have it strongly recommended for students that have less than a 3.3 GPA. Give us a context in terms of how strong is their verbal and quantitative background. We also do look at that writing component, the AWA, to see how strong they are thinking in terms of the analytical context. But again, it depends on where they're at. We look at everything holistically, so the GMAT is just one part of that application process for us here.
Sure, and I'm glad you explained that. When I get questions about the GMAT exam, candidates are often confused in how it's measured or how it is factored into the decision. They think everything rides on the total score, and sometimes don't really realize that admissions professionals are looking at those specific sections of the exam to gain context about who you are, how you might perform in their program. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. So if you are looking at a program and you're going to need to take the GMAT exam, I always advise you to take it early. That's best advice I could give there. And then to take the entire exam seriously, because you never know what part is really going to be a factor or that admissions person might need to gain some more insight about you. So thanks, Bert.
Sure.
Chantel, so tell us, from your perspective, you've been in the industry for a while now. What do you feel like are the most important skills or in-demand skills as you've grown in your profession? What do you think really matters?
So I definitely would second what Shelby and Bert were saying about leadership skills and, you know, just being a team player, because you're going to have to learn how to work with the people that you work with. That's very important. But in addition to that, I would also say problem solving and just critical thinking, analytical thinking. I think when you're in school, you know, when you're given an assignment, it's probably, you know, follow step 1, follow step 2, and then everybody gets the same solution. Whereas in real world, in practice, every client is different, every business is different, so the solution is not always going to be the same. So you'll have to come up with, you know, okay, well, why is this one different? And being a problem solver and just thinking, that's where, you know, they really value your wisdom in those areas. I would also say professionalism. So for the most part, I personally work a lot at the client site. Some people are more so in their office. So in PwC context, the firm is, you know, they want to know that they can feel confident about putting you in front of their clients. Are you someone who can speak well? Do you have good business writing skills? Things of that nature, I would also say are pretty important skills to hone in on when you come into the working field.
Tell us about a typical day at your
typical day. Every day is totally different for me, honestly. Some days I'm in the office and I'm working with my team. I'm a newly promoted senior associate, so now I'm having to coach associates who are under me and review their work and make sure that they're understanding what they need to learn. Other days I'm sitting out at my client side and we're in meetings to either gather data or present data to them. And then myself personally, I don't travel too much, but throughout the year, there are a few times where I travel mostly along the East Coast. And we also have the flexibility to work from home. So it just, every day, it really varies. That's kind of what I wanted when I was choosing a firm, is something with a lot of flexibility. And I didn't want to be doing the same, you know, mundane task over and over again. So I appreciate that here.
Okay. What have you learned that you wish you would have known like earlier on in this whole journey?
So one thing that I was just telling another one of my mentees about is student loans. Try to avoid taking as anything if you can. I think for me, coming out of high school, going into college, it just seemed like there was a bunch of scholarship opportunities everywhere. But when you get to that point where you're going from undergrad to grad school, you may not see that many, but try your hardest to look. My grad program had a grad assistantship at Florida A&M University that was able to cover a portion of my tuition, because you don't want to have worked so hard to get to a good place and find that perfect career, and then you're spending a good portion of your career paying off student loans. So try to avoid that. I would also say maintain and value those relationships that you're building in grad school with your professors, with your peers. Some people to this day, I see them at other career fairs for school, and it's like, wow, you're a recruiter at this firm and I'm a recruiter here. So keep those relationships, because you just never know when those will come in handy. So that's what I would advise.
Awesome. Bert, can you, Chantel brought up financing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Financing the actual grad school.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are obviously scholarships that schools do provide. You know, and some programs are different in terms of how they're structured, but grad school is a little bit different in the sense that some of the grants that are available at the undergrad level are not available at the graduate level. So for us, we do offer scholarships for qualified applicants that helps to offset some of the costs of the program. We're a quarter system here, so we have sort of 3 segments throughout the year of the program. In the winter, we have it open where students can actually do an internship. I know it was mentioned by Chantel and Shelby that they've done internships. So while you're working within the program, you can actually earn and get that connection with the firm. And then finally, of course, there's loans, right? So I think it's always it is an investment in you. So probably to go out there and apply every scholarship that you can get is going to be useful, because you're not going to have to pay that back. But even if you do take somewhat of an investment, I mean, obviously people purchase cars and they take loans with that, you know, you're going to get a career that pays pretty well. And in accounting, you do move up fairly quickly. And it's a field where you do need a skill set. So it's not like you can just jump into accounting without having the background. So I think you would just have to do the math. I mean, generally speaking, accounting students are good at math. and are good at running the numbers. So it's like any investment, you have to run the return on investment for you, and it's different for everybody, right? But it does pay off. I mean, from all the students that we've seen, it's been always a very valuable investment. It's been a very worthwhile time. Most of the students, I don't think, regret going to grad school and getting that master's degree, at least if they do an accounting degree. But it goes case by case. And, you know, I think sort of Chantel was talking about that. There's a lot of scholarships available out there, and people just don't apply to them. So, you know, definitely have a list, spend some time on doing that, because there's definitely a lot of things and resources out there for students that are really just willing and hungry to go out there and grab it.
Yeah. What advice do you have for twofold, for undergraduates who are, they know they want to get their master's, what should they be doing now? And then what about like working professionals who are thinking about coming back to maybe a master's in accounting program or even an MBA? What should they be doing?
That's a good question. I think so. Obviously, thinking about whether it fits into your life strategy and your professional goals is important. I think sometimes at the undergraduate level, people just assume that's the next logical step. And you see that it's, well, I got my bachelor's degree, now I just need to do my master's degree, and there's probably no deeper thought beyond that. I think it's important to figure out if this is a career that you really want to do. I think the internship side is very critical because it really gives you kind of a visual view and actually a hands-on view of what you'll be doing as a professional. So if you have that chance in undergrad to do an internship, you should probably do that. It's probably the best way to learn about what you're going to go into. If you're a working professional, you know, you have to assess whether it makes sense for you to take a year off and go back to grad school. You know, some schools, like we offer a part-time program where students can do it in the evenings because they have other commitments and financial obligations where they can't leave their job or have families. You can do that as a part-time model as well. And then if you're thinking about an MBA or even a master's in accounting, I think we talked about that in the sense that you have to look at your state regulations, where an MBA in California, for example, you probably won't have enough units to be able to sit for the CPA exam and be licensed as a CPA. So you would almost need to take additional courses in a master's. Your goal is. Or maybe you're looking for more flexibility and more balance, and maybe you've already had that work experience where you just need maybe a little bit less accounting knowledge, and you just want that master's degree where maybe an MBA will make sense for you. It's always a case-by-case basis with that. So even when we talk with students, I think it's always beneficial, if you're not sure, to reach out to certain schools where you are interested in, talk with professionals, and see what's a good fit for you. I don't think there's like a cookie-cutter fit for everybody.
Sure, and you're echoing what we hear from admissions directors all the time. Think as much as you can, thinking about the big picture and then tracking backwards, as opposed to just taking what you consider just the next step in the process is really going to help, because there's so many different program types, so many different specialties. You can get an MBA with a specialty in accounting. You could do an MS in accounting. You could, like you said, bring in the data analytics side, which is huge right now. So there are just so many avenues and options available. But as it relates to programs, format, financial aid, there are really just a wealth of options out there. So it's really about getting involved, making those connections, talking to the experts at your schools, and, you know, figuring it out from there. Shelby, you are probably the closest to this. What advice do you have for accounting undergraduates who are planning to get their business degree?
Yeah, you gotta network and you gotta start now. I know it could be uncomfortable going up to someone you don't even know, but really it's worthwhile to make those relationships. And you can do this with your professors, your peers in your classroom. At the beginning you were saying how you're gonna be going into business with them soon. You might be doing business with them soon. So it's really important to start building up your network and start making those relationships. And not only just doing that so you can have some help down the road where you can ask a friend for a favor or help you out, but also that you can hear about what their career options are. So maybe something different that you didn't even know was an option before. And I know that was something definitely for me when I talked to my professors. Some of them were CPAs, some of them weren't, and just kind of talking to them and seeing how what their career was like and how they got to the position that they were at now and what made them decide to get there. And some of them did private, some of them did public. Someone liked it and someone didn't. So it was really great to hear those stories to help kind of develop me and think about what long-term goals I want to. So again, with the networking, you can get those long-term goals, but also just build those relationships up to help you out in the future.
What's been your biggest challenge so far?
In grad school, nothing's ever completed. You might like turn something in and then they'll put like 0 and then they'll give you another week to like figure it out. So I like to have things done and I can move on to the next thing. So sometimes I just have to go home and do the dishes so I know like something's completed at least in my way. But yeah, some things are just never done, and you got to get over that fear of failure all the time. It's not that they're trying to put you down, it's just trying to build you up and have a bigger, broader mindset, look deeper into insights on what you're like actually researching and everything. And I think it's developed me to be someone that's going to work a lot harder in the long term, have that grit, like I said, and you have to get over that fear of failure, and just accept that you got to keep working towards things, and at some point the rewards will pay off. So.
What about reward? What about reward? What's been the biggest reward thus far?
My biggest reward. I think business school has really taught me the values that I need to be successful. I would think would be my biggest reward. I mean, I know in my school, and I'm sure a lot of other schools, they communicate what their values are, what they expect out of their students, in a clear communication way. And I think my school has taught me to, work hard. If you stay determined and you're honest, you're going to go far in life. And I just kept those values in the back of my mind. Any team project that I worked on, or any avenue that I want, or goal that I want to reach, I've kept those values in the back of my mind. And I think that's been rewarding for me to be successful. So having this school helped me think that way. It's been good.
What about for you, Chantel? Biggest challenge and reward thus far?
For grad school?
For grad school or in your professional experience as well? Either.
Gotcha. Actually, I would say most challenging for grad school and work kind of line up, and that's just the workload. For me in grad school, I had like a very targeted start date for work, so I was trying to expedite my program a little bit. So taking 5 MBA classes a semester was a lot, but we fought through it and we made it. For work, it's similar. There are client demands and things change, deadlines move around, things move around. So there are those times where you're going to have some early mornings and late nights, but again, that's where it's important to have a good team and people that you genuinely enjoy working with to get you through those times. I would say most rewarding in grad school was, so in my MBA program, we were actually well connected with the Tallahassee Small Business Development Center. So in one of our capstone classes for grad school, we actually got to do a small business development project with a real local business in Tallahassee. And I enjoyed it very thoroughly. Our client, she loved us, she appreciated us. And that even turned into an opportunity for where we did like a mini Shark Tank session for local businesses in Tallahassee who were getting ready to solicit money from investors. So those kind of opportunities were really cool to experience. And as far as work, we do a lot of group, happy hours, and, just as demanding as it can be, it's also rewarding. And they make sure that our promotion days are very fun and enjoying. For my recently, I just went on a trip to California, which is part of our promotion trip. So they try to balance it out with the challenging times with the most rewarding. So that's what I would say for my response.
Sure. Thank you so much. Let's answer a few questions. We have a few. As you've been listening, if any questions have come up, please post them. We'll get to as many of them as we can. So we have a question from Amelia. She needs more information about the programs. So I think that may be for you, Bert, to talk about your program a little bit more. And I think you talked about it some as we went on, but if there are just some highlight notes that you would like to share about UCI's program, that'd be great.
Sure. So we're located in Irvine, here in Southern California. So we're about 45 minutes from LA, and also about an hour away from San Diego. So we're pretty much in the center of Southern California. We have 2 options for our program. So basically the delivery method is is either full-time, which is normally 9 months for accounting majors and about 11 months with the boot camp for non-accounting majors. We have a part-time option. It's essentially the same degree, but it's over 2 years for working professionals. And we really focus heavily, at least in our program, on the professional development side. We are a target school for all the Big Four. I think that's important. And also, we just had a Meet the Firms. So Meet the Firms is this big event for people that don't know. Essentially, all these public accounting companies, private accounting companies, and students essentially are in this room with about 400 other people in dark suits. And they're all trying to look for positions, right? And it's kind of interesting. Not a lot of fields sort of have a Meet the Marketing firms, right? But there's Meet the Accounting firms every fall. So a lot of our students are going through that process, and we are a target school with that. You know, here in Irvine alone, there's 30 public accounting firms. All the Big Four are situated here. So I think it's a benefit. If you're looking, you know, in different parts of the country, you probably want to make sure, I think most of our students are career oriented in the sense that they want to use the degree to get into a profession. So a question I would have beyond sort of, you know, even rankings or anything of that sort is, what's their employment rate? Which companies actually go there to recruit? Because a lot of these degrees, these sort of 1-year specialized degrees, whether they're accounting or finance or business analytics or any other programs that are out there, I think students go in there for that professional development to get into that career. And that's where I think it deviates a little bit from the MBA, where essentially you're using the MBA to pivot within your career path that you already have that job. A lot of our students don't have work experience. We don't need work experience at all. I mean, we see it almost as a function that you come here, we professionally develop you, and hopefully by the time that you're done, you'll have a situation like Shelby and Chantel where there's a position waiting for you once you have your master's degree conferred.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not sure if anyone could take this, but maybe we could just talk about when it comes to making decisions. So there's a question about someone is confused about the different options in accounting and finance. Like, is it better to get a master's in finance and with STEM and then get a CPA, or should you get a CFA directly? Or should you gain a few more years experience and then get an MBA? If any of you could just talk about making those types of decisions, approaching those types of decisions and the types of considerations you might want to make.
I can. Oh, go ahead, Chantel.
I was just going to respond briefly and say I think it depends, and it depends more so on what your end goal is going to be. So what type of company do you see yourself working for? What type of work do you enjoy doing? So for me, when I was going through grad school, my decisions were based on, can I accomplish all of my CPA education requirements in this program? And just like Bert said, a really good point is, does this school have, or does this program have enough companies come to visit it and interact it, so that way I have a real job potential opportunity towards the end. So it's more so thinking about what you want to do and then making your grad school program decision based on what will get you there.
I'd also add, think like where you're going to be in 5 years. It might be really hard to come back to school. You can definitely do it, but sometimes it's not an option for everyone.
Bert, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of those points by Chantel and Shelby are important, right? I mean, obviously these are very different fields. So almost choosing to go down one path if you chose public accounting, because there's so many educational requirements, it might preclude you from going into the finance side. So you really need to think longer term of where you see yourself being. I know they mentioned STEM, so I don't know if this question is coming from someone that's internationally focused. There is a difference with STEM in the sense that if you do choose a program that has that STEM designation, you can stay in the country for 3 years because of the visa restrictions with that. So I know that's a big option for some international students, where if you do a master's in accounting, a lot of them aren't STEM certified. STEM meaning, you know, science, technology, engineering, management. So the government gives you sort of this extended visa. So most people can stay 1 year with a master's of accounting. If you do say like finance degree or even an analytics degree, you can probably stay a little longer. So that might be a different kind of situation that an international student will need to think about. But for most of our students that are domestic students, meaning like US citizens and permanent residents, that question probably doesn't apply to them because they're really more focused just on that career aspect. But again, it's probably one of those things where you really have to maybe sit with somebody and talk with them a little more in depth about what your options are and what your goals are long term.
Absolutely. And I might even suggest, the tour companies, QS, MBA Tour, they do many events. They do some MBA focused events, some grad school events. I know even this spring, there are going to be some STEM focused events or financial accounting management focused events. And that'll give you a great opportunity to go and talk to some of the admissions persons. They always do panel discussions there. And perhaps you can gain some insight from people who have completed each of those paths, and that might give you a clearer picture on what the end could look like. And then you can, as we discussed earlier, track back from there and work towards it. But I think it'll be a little challenging if, it sounds like some of those fields, what they do in function, and you might know how, what the salary ranges are, what this designation might do, but it might not be as clear of a picture on what's actually happening once you're there, what the day-to-day is like. And that's going to be the more sustaining aspect of it. And it'll be really important when it comes to making that decision. So thank you guys there. How much does Bert, you can answer this one. How much does name brand masters mean in accounting? And I think that means, in the MBA circuit, you have brand schools. Like, is this the same kind of situation when it comes to master's programs?
I think it's probably a couple of different ways you can approach that. I think if a school is ranked, I think they will obviously say it does matter, right? So when we were not ranked, it didn't matter. Now we're ranked, it's like it mattered.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think when you really just barrel down and talk with students about their goals and needs, it's really the firm aspect, right? That career development side. They really want to see the functionality of, if I do a master's degree with your school, will I have connections for opportunities in the field? I think the side that it matters too is beyond that is also the culture that you have at a program. I mean, I know sort of Shelby was talking about that it's important. So when you look at the big four firms, they probably just differentiate a tiny bit in terms of culture, right? And you do some of the similar functions if you're an audit or tax, wherever you go. So I think it's similar for schools too, right? I think if you're looking to be in California, you probably want to go to a California school. If you want to be in New York, you probably want to stay in the East Coast in a New York school. Because your connections are deep there. Your networks are kind of, your tentacles go out. And even though you can probably go to anywhere around the world once you start working with some of these global firms, chances are your first position is going to be very tied to wherever you are, right? So if you're in Southern California, our ties are very deep in Orange County and LA County and San Diego County, and also more in the San Francisco Bay Area, because we have a lot of Northern California students that come down. So it just depends. I mean, it really depends on where you see yourself going. So that brand side, I would ask the student, like, is it really, are you using the degree to get a career goal? Is it really to have that prestige? It might matter for some people to have that prestige too, right? So that's where I think, when people ask brand, does it matter? At least from talking with most of the students for over 5 years, I guess, most of them would want to have a career option. And sometimes the brand doesn't really necessarily make that big of an impact.
Yeah, I would agree, particularly given that on the panel here, both of Shelby and Chantel work for, Big Four, and they're in various parts of the country, did various types of programs. So I think it's going to depend on what matters to you. We got a few more questions. Great. From Smith, can one expect similar opportunities having completed a CFA compared to an MBA?
And what is the CFA certification? Is that the Certified Forensic Auditor, or?
He might, or Chartered Financial Advisor, maybe he's referring to that. I'm not sure. So yeah, I think
clarify what the CFA stands for.
It might be the Chartered Financial Advisor. So he's probably asking more on the finance side. So he seems like he's completed probably the CFA compared to an MBA. Obviously you can do a CFA without doing a master's degree. But again, it's really long-term, what are your goals with that? And also with MBA programs, I think that might be a difference where the MBA side, it does matter probably ranking and brand, because a lot of MBAs, networking, connections, kind of building that off. So really with an MBA, that brand might actually have a pretty big impact because you have a larger network and access to that. Where accounting, again, it's very regionally based, right? So obviously even here on the panel, you have people from across the country and they're successful there. They have big four jobs and positions. So, you know, I think it's a little bit different. With an MBA, probably brand has a little bit more of that prestige. Tech and go into Silicon Valley, you know, going to Stanford does matter quite a bit, right? So, you know, but that's where I'm not sure if he's asking whether he should invest in that. You know, it depends, right? I mean, it really depends on what his end goal would be.
I agree. Sorry, we couldn't be more specific.
That's like very broad. So.
Yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Last chance. Shelby, Chantel, Bert, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. Hopefully we'll be able to keep this conversation going. This is our first of our accounting focused events. So it's really great to see the types of questions that are being asked. It gives us a clearer understanding of what the needs are of this audience. And I appreciate all of you for being on and helping to make the path just a little bit clearer, help provide some perspective, and hopefully someone will be able to use it and take that next step in their career goal. So thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you all for joining us. Our next event is coming up on November 1st. That's going to be Understanding and Preparing for the GMAT exam. So if any of you on right now know that you're looking to take the exam, then it's going to be a great opportunity for you to learn more about it then. Stay tuned at MBA.com for more information. And again, thank you all so much for joining us. In the follow-up email, we'll send you contact information along with a recording of the video. So take care. Best of luck to you. And again, thank you to all our panelists for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.